Last time on the Street Sharks review.
I've got something here with such fantastic detail it's gonna blow you away. Head shark! Good chase! Rocky Balboa action!
And now, the follow-up, where I talk about the extreme dinosaurs. Hello, I woke up from my 2-year hibernation to finally talk about the extreme dinosaurs. So, let's start at the beginning. The original pitch for the series was basically Street Sharks, but with dinosaurs. A bunch of young dudes being transformed into dinosaurs by an evil scientist. But thankfully, the crew figured that wouldn't do. So we got the next iteration, which was teased on the actual Street Sharks show, where they appeared as the Dino Vengers, a police squad from another planet where dinosaurs exist. But in their own show, which we're covering today, they're just normal dinosaurs from Earth who became anthropomorphic after an alien called Argor Zardock used his machine on them because he's a scaly. Oh wait, no. He's an evil Quadranian criminal that came to Earth to turn the dinosaurs living there intelligent so they could help him dominate the whole universe. So he's a scaly with ambitions. Out of the 7 dinosaurs that were transformed, our 4 protagonists refused to obey, and soon enough we have a grand battle between them and 3 raptors which were more obedient to their master. This all ends in the destruction of the world. While Argor runs away with a group of Quadranian law officers chasing after him, one officer decides to give the dinos shelter from the cataclysm in her spacecraft, with the raptors sneaking on board too. They fall into a state of hibernation and wake up in the present, or to be more specific, the 90s. This is where this show actually takes place, so let me introduce the characters now. T-Bone is the leader of the group, a yellow Tyrannosaurus Rex who's often pretty serious, stern, and focused on the mission at hand. He can stomp to cause small earthquakes. Oh, and yes, I am aware how weird it is for a Tyrannosaurus Rex to have 2 massive pythons like that.
Saurian Star!
Next is Stags, a green Stegosaurus who's the most intelligent out of the group. He offers technobabble and scientific expertise. His specialty in combat is to turn himself into a speeding boss saw that can cut through nearly everything. Because science! Then there's Spike, a blue Triceratops who loves to fight, which sometimes gets him into trouble. He's also a passionate cook who likes to ram into things. Naturally.
Triassic, guys! You gotta try this skiing thing!
And last is Bullseye, the comic relief of the group, a red pterodactyl who just loves to lay on the couch, watch TV, and buy stuff from the teleshopping network.
Think about it, toilet paper is really archaic and disgusting. The comfort wipe is the modern solution.
That's right, never touch another dirty toilet tissue.
He can fly and use sonic waves, I guess.
Okay, that's it!
No! The TV!
So that's our extreme dinosaurs. Admittedly, you'd be forgiving for saying that they're exactly like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. However, that's a template that actually works and gives us distinguishable protagonists as opposed to having 4 boring cool dudes. So, I'm not complaining. We also have a sort of splinter for the team in form of Chedra Budzak, the Quadranian officer that saved the dinos.
These deep freeze chambers should keep us safe until a rescue party arrives.
Rescue party?
Code 55 paragraph 9 states,
We'll take your word for it.
A lawful good character who always demands the dinos to follow the Quadranian law when doing their missions. As a child, I thought she was quite a drag, but as an adult, I can certainly appreciate her. What? No, not like that! But I appreciate that you took it in consideration. Unlike the dinos, she does get some actual character growth as the series goes on. She becomes less stiff, warms up to Earth as her new home, and she learns to trust the dinos a lot more, and eventually lets them embark on missions on their own. Sure, this could have just been the writers wanting to have less of her in the show, but I appreciate the way it was handled. There's also a few other characters, such as Porcupine the Wall, the owner of the dinosaur museum that the dinos stay at. Ditto, the pet ostrich that the dinosaurs own. Prince H, a kid who supports the dinos on several missions as he is the Prince of England. I'm sure he was just shoehorned in so that all the British princes with H starting names had someone to relate to. A later addition to the team came in form of Hard Rock, a pacifist ankylosaurus that still fights, just to beat up bad guys, I guess. Honestly, Hard Rock is probably the most boring and bland character in the entire cast. Aside from being the token ankylosaurus, there's very little to him. Many people would prefer to have seen some other character in his stead, but we're sadly stuck with boring old Hard Rock, who's all like,
I like wrestling, but I don't like fighting. But I like to wrestle, but I don't like fighting. But I like to wrestle, but I don't like fighting.
Now, onto the more interesting part of the show, the antagonists. While the show certainly features a few characters in that role, the bread and butter of the series comes from the Raptors, who are led by Bad Rap, who certainly earns his name.
Yo, I'm sitting in my chair, in the middle of my lab. It's a chair, on the floor, not in the air. It's a chair. It's real comfortable and shit. God, I'm white.
Evil, sinister, cunning, charismatic, and voiced by Gary Chalk, giving the best performance of the whole cast.
No! We have to build a cyborg they can't beat! The most vicious and cunning hunter of them all!
I've got just the thing! Cyber Raptors!
Spitter is his right-hand man, the clever inventor, but in a fun twist, Spitter is only book smart, so to speak. Bad Rap has all the plans and leadership skills. Also, his superpower is spitting acid, which used to sound like a seagull during the Street Sharks era. Last is Hex, who's the dumbest one of the bunch. He's got his tail and claws as weapons, but he hardly ever uses them anyways.
Hey, why did Hax get rid of his alarm clock? It kept waking him up!
That's not funny! How'd they know?
So, what do the Raptors fight for? Well, with their master gone, world domination fell off the priorities list. The Raptors just want the Earth to be warm and cozy, like back in their day. So they come up with various plans to create global warming, because that's easier than to live in the tropics, I guess. This might make it sound like the show is some preachy Captain Planet type of series, but the ideas that the Raptors come up with hardly ever have anything logical behind them. The show is not meant to teach the audience anything about ecology. Humanity is not causing any harm to the planet. The only danger comes from those darn raptors, which humanity is helpless to fight against. So remember, kids,
The power
isn't
yours!
Actually, while I'm at it, I have to address the topic of AntiRetro Propaganda. Ever since Jurassic Park, raptors were portrayed as the bad dinosaurs, while the others got a pass. Exceptions to this rule are few and far between. I even found a website dedicated to all possible jokes about raptors, calling them stupid, impotent, and bad at playing basketball. Oh wait, those sites refer to the Toronto Raptors. But in all seriousness, the Raptors on this show do not come off as evil for the sake of being evil, but rather just a bunch of guys who just try to make their lives more comfortable, while admittedly ignoring the consequences for everybody else. Sometimes they even talk about raptorizing the world, which could imply filling the world with raptors like themselves.
You're implying that a group composed entirely of male animals will breed?
No, I'm simply saying that life, finds a way.
This small bit of moral grayness is quite appreciated, although it makes it a bit harder to root for the good guys when they are, extremely anti-raptor for no good reason. Sometimes they come off like they care less about the planet and more about just wanting to beat up some raptors, which sounds quite hateful. I realize this might sound like I'm overanalyzing a silly, dumb kids show, but I'm not the only person who picked up on this, and even the writers of the show tried to kind of fix this in post. There's an early episode where the extreme dinosaurs get their hands on what they assume to be raptor eggs, and they talk about how raptors are not born evil, and how they could be raised to be good. You don't say. Or another episode where they land in a whole different world where raptors and other dinosaurs live together in a warm climate, which only gives the raptors a few hours of joy before they get angry that the raptors are not destroying things and causing chaos. This, however, felt quite out of character for them and came off as a lame retcon. Plus, in the very same episode, our heroes once again go back to their old ways and immediately attack the first raptor they see, no questions asked. Look, guys, it's not like I don't understand. You come from another time. The drinking ponds were separate, raptors couldn't go to the same school as non-raptors, but it's the 90s. Let's stop this irrational raptor hate and learn to live together in peace.
Time to go!
No way!
Now! We'll take care of these gecko heads later.
Wait, did he just use gecko head as an insult? The raptors can go burn in hell!
Let's carnivate them!
In all seriousness, despite how one might feel about the extreme dinosaurs, they are still quite a likable bunch. Definitely when compared to the street sharks. You definitely get the impression that the people writing the episodes were given far more freedom here, which allowed them to create something far more serviceable. There's even a few moments which felt extremely, pun intended, jarring, coming straight from watching the Street Sharks. In an early episode, the dinos realized that the world they once knew only exists as recreations in museums. There are no more dinosaurs. Everybody they once knew is dead, and there is no going back.
Are you guys okay?
We really are the last of our kind, aren't we?
Okay, now that I've talked about the characters, let's talk about some other elements that makes this series superior over its predecessor. Aside from a few initial episodes, the adventures that the dinos go on are really wacky and fun, especially when compared to the boring shenanigans of the sharks. They don't go to Scotland as an excuse to punch the Raptors. No, they go there because the Raptors managed to get the actual Loch Ness Monster under their control with bagpipe music. Or how about that time Bad Rap wrote a movie script to start a production on the movie as a front for his tar pit scheme in Los Angeles? Or how about that time they met Santa Claus? Or the time the Raptors went to some Arabian country and pretended to be genies so that they could modify the oil produced there so that it would create a lot of pollution and as such cause global warming.
Everybody got that?
While the sharks wasted time being cool, the dinos focus on being fun characters doing wacky things. Quite frankly, I feel like their design does help the comedy, as their buff bodies and the sound of them stomping around gives the impression of them being so super serious, but then they surprise you with something really wacky, which makes it all the more funny. Other improvements over the Street Sharks come in the visuals, as the animation feels a lot more lively and juicy. Plus, there's no musical interludes with cringy songs. There's still flaws here and there, but not in the same numbers as with the Street Sharks. But sadly, there is one thing that the dinos do way worse than the sharks. The commercial breaks. There are several episodes which start with a fight scene which involves a dangerous moment as an excuse to squeeze in an early commercial break. The fight in question is almost always irrelevant to the rest of the episode and just cuts time that could have been better spent on the plot of the episode. All just to get in a few more commercials, which likely advertise their very own toy line.
Claws, muscles, and jaws! 3 dinosaurs! Super cool superheroes!
And speaking of being shameless, let's get to the catchphrases! While being used less frequently, we did get an increase in their variety, likely in part because this time even the bad guys get to use some. So, like last time, I did put together a top 5 list of the most popular Extreme Dinosaurs catchphrases. Number 5, Saurian Stomp, 16 times, cause T-Rexes are known for stomping the ground to cause earthquakes.
Saurian Stomp!
Number 4, Let's carnivate them, whatever that's supposed to mean, 17 times.
Let's carnivate them!
Number 3,
Send them back to the Ice Age 18 times. You mean the period of time when dinosaurs no longer existed? One that none of you experienced, having been in a state of hibernation? Or do you just mean killing them?
Send them back to the Ice Age!
Number 2. Let's fossilize them 19 times. Do you mean killing them and preserving their remains where their organic substances become minerals and are preserved in rocks or amber? Or do you just mean the killing part?
Hi. Let's fossilize them!
And now, an honorary mention for a controversial pick, as it is just me lumping many entries together, as they sound extremely similar. Namely, bad rap making wordplay with the extreme dinosaur's name 34 times.
Oh, those exasperating dinosaurs found us! The exhausted dinosaurs have always been suckers for hostages. What did it do to the excessive dinosaurs? I think I like the exuberant dinosaurs. Nice touch, Spitter. But the extremely annoying dinosaurs ruined my fun.
And last, the most frequent catchphrase of the extreme dinosaurs is Cretaceous 36 times.
Cretaceous?
You mean the Cretaceous period, which occurred between 145 and 66 million years ago, following after the Jurassic period, and concluding in the Cretaceous Paleogene extinction event, which killed almost all non-avian dinosaurs on the planet? Okay, I guess I can see how a pterodactyl could see that as cool.
So, with all of that said, let me summarize everything.
I stand by what I said in my original video. The extreme dinosaurs are the far superior series. I think it's quite fascinating that the street sharks are often cited as not only a miserable attempt at doing a TMNT style show, but also one that came way too late, when this genre was already out the window. However, the extreme dinosaurs came even later, and I don't see them being mentioned as much, certainly not negatively. They're even still somewhat beloved by some people, and they do get some fan art drawn every now and then too. Sure, the sharks do too, but the numbers speak for themselves, especially when you focus on the Rule 34 stuff. The Extreme Dinosaurs is still a neat little 90s show, with fun characters that go on interesting adventures. It has flaws, and I'm not sure if it could at all attract the attention of a modern audience, aside from Scalies. But to the people who watched it as kids, or the people who missed it back in the day, yeah, I feel like it could be a fun watch. Nothing groundbreaking, not necessarily a must, but certainly a decent watch.
I'm Feral the Gecko. I hope you had a Mesozoic time today, and I'll be seeing you next time. Goodbye.